Hey guys, tonight we slip into the torchlit streets of ancient Rome, where the air hums with whispered promises and the clink of wine cups. Picture yourself weaving through a bustling forum, togas brushing your elbows, as a poet recites verses about burning hearts. Love in Rome wasn't just butterflies. It was a battlefield of duty, desire, and deals struck in marble halls. You're about to dive into a world where passion could crown or crush you. And honestly, you probably won't survive this tangle of Roman romance unscathed. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I'm curious where you're listening from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand in the heart of Rome, 100 BCE, where love isn't just a feeling, it's a language, a currency, a puzzle. Romans didn't have one word for love. They had dozens, each slicing the concept into precise shades. Amor was the fiery, heart-racing kind, the stuff of late-night poems. Caritas leaned toward selfless care, like a mother's hug or a friend's loyalty. Then there was Dilectio, a chosen affection, cool and deliberate. You hear these words tossed around in markets, carved into temple walls, shaping how people connect. Love wasn't a monolith. It was a spectrum, and Romans loved dissecting it. Fun fact, they even had a goddess, Venus, who ruled love's chaos, her statues smirking at every street corner. You can't escape her gaze. But here's a quirky tidbit. Romans thought love could be a literal sickness. Doctors like Galen scribbled about lovesickness as a medical condition, blaming it on imbalanced humors. Too much passion, they said, could fever your brain or stop your heart. Imagine a toga-clad physician prescribing cold baths and barley soup to cure your crush. You'd laugh, but they were dead serious. Historians still argue whether this was poetic exaggeration or a real diagnosis. Did Romans actually treat broken hearts like the flu? No one's sure, but it shows how deeply they obsessed over love's grip. You wander past a baker's stall, where a young couple argues over a loaf, their banter sharp but warm. Love in Rome was practical too. Most marriages weren't about soulmates. They were contracts, binding families for wealth or status. Yet, within those deals, affection could bloom. You spot an old man carving a wooden comb for his wife, his hands slow but tender. Love was duty, yes, but also small gestures, quiet moments. Still, don't romanticize it too much. Divorce was as common as chariot traffic, and falling in love wasn't the goal. You had to navigate expectations, not chase fairy tales. Speaking of fairy tales, Romans love their myths about love gone wild. Take Dido and Aeneas. She's a queen, he's a hero, and their passion ends in flames, literally. You hear a storyteller recount it to a crowd, their gasps filling the air. These tales weren't just entertainment, they were warnings. Love could lift you to the gods or hurl you into ruin. You smirk, thinking of your own bad date last week. Maybe the Romans were onto something. As you drift toward the forum's edge, the city pulses with love's contradictions. Sacred, messy, calculated, raw. You're starting to get why they couldn't stop talking about it. You're lounging on a cushioned bench in a Roman villa, the air heavy with olive oil and ink. A poet's voice drifts through the courtyard, reciting lines from Virgil's Aeneid, and you're hooked. His words paint love as a storm, wild, unstoppable, and often a bad idea. In ancient Rome, epic poetry wasn't just art, it was the Netflix of its day, spinning tales of passion that made crowds weep or cheer. Virgil's stories, especially, shaped how you and every Roman around you thought about love's highs and lows. You shift on the bench, catching a whiff of rosemary from the garden, and lean in to listen. The Aeneid is Rome's blockbuster, and its love stories hit hard. Take Dido, Carthage's fierce queen, who falls for Aeneas, a Trojan hero with a divine to-do list. Their romance is electric. Secret meetings, stolen kisses in caves. But it's doomed. Aeneas ditches her for his destiny, and Dido, heartbroken, builds her own funeral pyre. You wince as the poet describes her final flames. This isn't just drama. It's a Roman PSA. Love can derail even the strongest. Virgil's point? Duty trumps passion. You nod, thinking of that time you skipped work for a date. Bad call. Here's a mainstream fact. Virgil wrote under Augustus, Rome's first emperor, who pushed family values to stabilize the empire. The Aeneid reflects this, framing love as a force to be tamed, not chased. Aeneas choosing Rome over Dido was Augustus's propaganda in verse. Love serves the state, not your heart. But there's a quirky twist. Some Romans ignored the moral and just loved the gossip. Tablets from Pompeii show fans scribbling Dido quotes like fangirls. One even carved, "Dido, I feel you," on a tavern wall. You chuckle, same vibe as tweeting about your ex. Historians still argue whether Virgil secretly sympathized with Dido. Did he hide a jab at Augustus's rigid ideals in her tragedy? Some say yes, pointing to her vivid pain. Others call it loyal propaganda. You're not sure, but the poet's voice cracks as he recites her final plea, and you feel the room shiver. Poetry like this didn't just entertain, it taught Romans how to feel. Love was glorious but dangerous, a spark that could light a city or burn it down. You glance at the other listeners, merchants, senators, a giggling teen. They're all hooked, some mouthing the lines. Epic poetry was public, performed at festivals or rich folks' parties, and it shaped love's image. Another tale, Orpheus and Eurydice, pops up in Ovid's Metamorphoses. Orpheus braves the underworld for his wife, only to lose her with one dumb glance back. You roll your eyes. Classic guy move. These stories weren't just for kicks. They were mirrors, showing Romans love's cost. You wonder if that teen will rethink her crush tomorrow. The poet wraps up, and you clap, your hands dusty from the bench. You're struck by how these verses linger, like a song stuck in your head. Virgil didn't just tell stories. He coded love into Rome's DNA, part dream, part warning. As you step into the cool night, stars blinking above, you can't shake Dido's fire. Maybe love's a storm, but you're curious to see how Romans navigated it off the page. You hum a tune, half expecting to hear Virgil's cadence in the wind. You're weaving through a Roman wedding procession, the air thick with rose petals and torch smoke. Drums pulse as a bride, veiled in flame orange, steps toward her new life. In ancient Rome, marriage wasn't about candlelit proposals. It was a power play, a deal sealed with handshakes and dowries. You're here to see how love, or something like it, squeezed into these calculated unions. The crowd cheers, but you catch the bride's tense glance. Love might be a guest at this party, but it's not the host. Marriage in Rome was a contract, often brokered when kids were barely teens. You watch a father, toga crisp, negotiate with the groom's family over land and status. The bride's feelings? Low priority. A mainstream fact. By law, marriages like this one aim to merge wealth or political clout, especially among elites. Julius Caesar married off his daughter Julia to Pompey to cement an alliance. Love wasn't even on the guest list. You smirk, imagining Caesar as a pushy wedding planner. Yet some couples grew fond over time, sharing jokes over breakfast or quiet walks in their villa gardens. Here's a quirky tidbit. Romans used bizarre wedding rituals to ensure harmony. The bride's hair was parted with a spear. Yes, a spear, symbolizing strength, or maybe just scaring off bad vibes. You picture her stylist dodging a pointy end and laugh. Historians still argue whether these rituals hinted at love's deeper role. Did couples see them as romantic or just superstitious chores? No one's sure, but you notice the groom slip a small ring onto her finger, a rare, soft moment amid the pomp. You follow the procession to a banquet where wine flows and guests toast the couple's future, mostly their future heirs. Roman marriages obsessed over kids, not cuddles. A wife's job was to produce legitimate sons, tying families tighter than any love letter. Still, you spot the bride giggle as her husband whispers something, their hands brushing. Love could sneak in, like sunlight through a crack. But don't get too mushy. Divorce was a quick papyrus signature away, often for political reshuffling. You think of your friend's messy breakup and nod. Maybe Romans weren't so different. The night deepens, and you wander past the couple's new home, where friends chant playful, spicy advice through the door. Marriage was public, a spectacle, not a private vow. Yet, some letters from the time, husbands praising wives for wit or loyalty, hint at real affection. You recall that wooden comb from the market, carved with care. Love wasn't the goal, but it could grow in the margins, stubborn as weeds. You wonder if this bride, now unveiled, feels a spark or just duty's weight. As the crowd thins, you linger by a fountain, its trickle soothing. Marriage was Rome's backbone, but love? It was a wild card, slipping into contracts like an uninvited guest. You grin, thinking of Dido's fire from Virgil's tale. Passion didn't need a ring to burn. The stars above wink, and you're ready to see where love pops up next in this city of deals and dreams. You're strolling through Pompeii's sun-baked streets, the Vesuvius shadow looming like a nosy neighbor. The walls around you are alive, painted with lovers entwined, cheeky graffiti, and ads for private services. In ancient Rome, erotic love wasn't hushed up. It was splashed across public spaces, bold as a summer festival. You're here to peek at how Romans flaunted their steamier side, where desire was both art and everyday chatter. You dodge a cart of amphorae, the air sharp with fish sauce, and dive into this spicy world. Pompeii's murals are your first stop. Villas and taverns, plastered with couples in, let's say, creative poses. A mainstream fact, these images weren't just decor. They celebrated fertility and pleasure, tied to Venus, love's feisty goddess. One fresco shows a satyr chasing a nymph, her grin half coy, half wild. You blush but can't look away. Romans saw sex as natural, even sacred, not a bedroom secret. But here's a quirky twist. Some graffiti brags about conquests like sports scores. Think Gaius 10-10, best night ever. You laugh, imagining it as ancient Yelp for hookups. Historians still argue whether these public displays meant Romans were liberated or just performative. Were the murals empowering, Or did they pressure folks to flaunt desire? You ponder this at a bathhouse, where mosaics of lovers ripple under steamy air. The vibe feels free, but you notice women's names in graffiti are rare. Men's boasts dominate. Still, the baths hum with flirty banter, and you catch a woman carving her initials with a sly smile. Maybe she's writing her own story. You wander to a tavern where sailors and merchants swap bawdy jokes over watered wine. Erotic love was casual here, woven into daily life. Prostitution was legal, regulated like a guild, and ladies of the night worked openly, their rooms marked by suggestive signs. You spot one, a stone phallus pointing to a doorway, and chuckle. Subtlety wasn't Rome's thing, yet love's physical side wasn't all fun. Slaves often had no choice, a grim reality behind the saucy art. You frown, thinking of the power games beneath the paint. The night settles, and you pause by a wall inscribed with a love poem, raw and tender. It's not all bravado. Some Romans poured real longing into these public confessions. You recall Dido's fire from Virgil's verses, burning without shame. Erotic love in Rome was loud, messy, sometimes cruel, but never hidden. You grin, picturing your friends' shocked faces at these wall-to-wall passions. As you turn a corner, the city hums with secrets, daring you to uncover more of love's brazen face. You're perched on a stone bench in a Roman garden, the air cool with mint and dusk. A scroll of Seneca's letters lies open, its words sharp as the philosopher's mind. In ancient Rome, love wasn't just for poets or lovers. It was a puzzle for thinkers like Seneca, who dissected it with stoic calm. You're here to explore how philosophy shaped Roman views on affection, turning passion into a mental game. You swat a mosquito, wishing for stoic patience, and dive into their heady ideas. Seneca, a big name in Stoicism, saw love as a potential trap. A mainstream fact, he argued emotions like desire should bow to reason, lest they wreck your inner peace. In his letters, he urges you to love moderately, care for others, sure, but don't let it hijack your soul. Picture him as your overly serious life coach, warning against catching feelings like they're the plague. You nod, thinking of that time you texted an ex at 2 a.m. Seneca would have had a field day. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some Romans mixed philosophy with magic, believing love potions could sway hearts. Seneca would have scoffed, but apothecaries sold charm brews. Think snail shells and herbs, promising to spark devotion. You laugh, imagining a toga-clad dude slipping one into his crush's wine, only to get a sneeze instead of a smooch. Historians still argue whether Stoics like Seneca influenced everyday Romans or just preached to elites? Did the baker down the street care about rational love? Maybe not, but you spot his wife humming, her eyes soft. Reason or not, love's there. You wander to a forum where philosophers debate under torchlight. Epicureans, rivals to Stoics, argue love's pleasure is worth chasing within limits. You overhear a young man quote Lucretius, an Epicurean poet, claiming desire's joy outweighs its pain. The crowd murmurs, split. It's a vibe check. Rome's thinkers didn't agree on love's place. Seneca's voice, though, cuts through. Master yourself, and love won't master you. You smirk, recalling that lovesickness diagnosis from the market. Philosophy's just a fancier cure. As stars prick the sky, you lean back, Seneca's scroll heavy in your hands. His stoic lens makes love a discipline, not a freefall. You think of Dido's flames, untamed and tragic. Seneca would have told her to chill. Yet, you notice couples strolling nearby, hands linked, defying his cold logic. Philosophy tried to tame love, but it's a wild thing, slipping through even the sharpest minds. You yawn, ready to see where Rome's heart leads next. You're skulking through a Roman alley, the air thick with gossip and cheap wine. Whispers swirl about forbidden love, affairs that rocked villas and rattled empires. In ancient Rome, scandalous romances weren't just tabloid fodder. They broke rules, families, and sometimes the state itself. You're here to eavesdrop on the juiciest tales, where passion defied duty and paid the price. You dodge a stray cat, its hiss like a warning, and lean closer to the chatter. One name dominates, Cleopatra and Mark Antony. A mainstream fact, their affair, starting around 41 BCE, wasn't just love, it was a political earthquake. Antony, a Roman general, ditched his wife and Rome's norms for Egypt's queen, throwing parties that made senators clutch their togas. Their romance threatened Rome's power, ending in defeat and suicide. You picture Antony, smitten, ignoring his inbox for Cleo's coal-lined eyes, and sigh, bad move, buddy. But here's a quirky twist. Romans spread wild rumors, like Cleopatra bathing in donkey milk to seduce him. You chuckle, imagining her splashing in a tub, plotting world domination. Historians still argue whether their love was genuine or a calculated alliance. Was Cleopatra playing Antony, or did they share real sparks? You're not sure, but the graffiti nearby, "Antony's a fool for her," suggests Romans ate up the drama. Another scandal hits closer to home. Julia, Augustus's daughter, whose affairs with multiple men sparked exile. Her flings weren't just rebellious, they mocked her dad's family values campaign. You wince, thinking of your own family group chat blowing up over less. You slip into a tavern where a bard spins tales of lesser-known lovers, slaves sneaking kisses, senators hiding mistresses. These stories rarely made history books, but they fueled Rome's rumor mill. Forbidden love was risky. Laws banned certain pairings, like elites with freed slaves, and adultery could mean banishment or worse. You spot a woman, slip a note to a cloaked figure, their glances electric. Love's danger only made it sweeter, like sneaking dessert before dinner. The night grows quiet, and you lean against a wall, the stone cool. These scandals, Cleopatra's milk baths, Julia's defiance, show love as Rome's wild card, toppling plans and pride. You recall Seneca's cool-headed advice and laugh. No Stoic could tame this chaos. As you wander on, the city hums with secrets, each one a spark in love's reckless fire. You're standing in a Roman temple, its marble cool underfoot, the air thick with incense and rosewater. Statues of Venus, goddess of love, loom above, her stone eyes glinting as if she knows your secrets. In ancient Rome, love wasn't just personal, it was divine, woven into religious rites that honored passion and fertility. You're here to witness how Romans worshipped love itself, blending devotion with desire. You adjust your imaginary toga, dodging an overzealous priest, and soak in the sacred vibe. Venus was Rome's superstar deity, her festivals packed with flowers, wine, and flirty vibes. A mainstream fact, the Veneralia, held every April, saw women pray for love, beauty, and happy marriages. You watch matrons toss petals into a fountain, murmuring wishes for their husband's affection, or maybe a cute gladiator's glance. The mood's light, but the stakes feel real. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some offerings included myrtle wreaths believed to spark romance. You grin, picturing a Roman bachelorette weaving one like it's a DIY love spell. Etsy would have loved her. Historians still argue whether these rites were heartfelt or just social flexes. Did worshippers truly seek Venus's blessing, or was it a fancy excuse to party? You're not sure, but the temple's packed, and you spot a young woman slip a clay heart onto an altar, her eyes fierce with hope. Religion gave love a stage, turning personal longings into public acts. Other gods, like Cupid, Venus's cheeky son, stirred the pot. His arrows were blamed for every bad crush. You think of your own, "Why did I like them?" face and nod. Cupid's a solid scapegoat. You follow a procession outside, where dancers sway to flutes, their moves hinting at love's wilder side. Some rites, like those for Bacchus, god of wine, got downright steamy with secret nighttime revels. Romans whispered about these, half shocked, half jealous. You chuckle, imagining a neighbor snitching like it's a HOA violation. Yet, these rituals tied love to the divine, making it bigger than any one heart. Even farmers prayed to Venus for fertile fields, linking human passion to the earth's. As twilight falls, the temple glows with oil lamps, and you linger by a statue, its smile soft. Venus worship made love a sacred thread, stitching Rome's people to their gods. You recall Pompeii's racy murals. Venus was there too, cheering on desire. The night hums, and you're curious where love's spark will flare next in this city of faith and fire. You're tucked into a dimly lit Roman study, the air heavy with papyrus and wax. A bundle of Cicero's letters sits before you, their words raw with longing and loss. In ancient Rome, elites like Cicero poured their hearts into private notes, revealing love's quiet, personal side away from public pomp. You're here to read these intimate scribbles, where affection and ambition tangle like vines. You light an oil lamp, its flicker warm, and dive into their world. Cicero, Rome's star orator, wrote letters to friends, family, and his wife, Terentia, that hum with emotion. A mainstream fact, these letters, preserved by chance, show love as a partnership, not just passion. Cicero praises Terentia's loyalty during his exile in 58 BCE, calling her his light. You picture him, stressed and toga rumpled, finding comfort in her strength. But here's a quirky twist. He also gushes about his daughter, Tullia, nicknaming her My Delight in letters that feel like ancient dad texts. You smile, thinking of your own family group chat, lighting up with heart emojis. Historians still argue whether Cicero's warmth was genuine or a polished act. Did he write for posterity, knowing his letters might be read? You're not sure, but his grief over Tullia's death in 45 BCE feels raw. Page after page of shattered sentences. You pause, the lamp's glow soft, and flip to a note to his friend Atticus, where he confesses fears for his marriage. Love in these letters isn't epic like Dido's. It's messy, human, lived in stolen moments between speeches and schemes. You glance at other elites' letters, like those of Pliny the Younger, who raves about his wife, Calpurnia's wit. These notes reveal love as a private refuge, a contrast to Rome's public deals. You recall the marriage contracts from that wedding procession. Duty ruled there, but here, in ink, love breathes. Some letters hint at strain. Cicero and Terentia divorced, their bond frayed by politics. You wince, thinking of your friend's breakup over irreconcilable vibes. The night deepens, and you lean back, the papyrus crisp under your fingers. These letters stitch love into Rome's elite world, tender, flawed, fiercely personal. You smirk, remembering Pompey's bold graffiti. Cicero's heart was quieter, but no less real. As the lamp sputters, you're ready to see how love played by Rome's stricter rules next. You're pacing a Roman courtroom, the air sharp with ink and tension. Marble busts of stern lawmakers glare down, reminding you that love in ancient Rome wasn't just poetry or prayers. It was bound by strict legal chains. You're here to navigate the laws that caged affection, dictating who could love whom and how. You clutch an imaginary scroll, dodging a lawyer's dramatic gesture, and dive into this world of rules and penalties. Roman law was obsessed with order, especially in relationships. A mainstream fact, the Lex Julia, passed by Augustus around 18 BCE, clamped down on adultery and improper matches to promote moral families. If you, a senator, fell for a freed slave, the law slapped you with fines or worse. Your romance was a threat to social hierarchy. You grimace, thinking of that forbidden alley tryst you overheard. Those lovers were playing with fire. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some Romans dodged these laws with fake marriages, staging ceremonies to legitimize shady affairs. You laugh, picturing a shady toga-clad wedding with more winks than vows. Historians still argue whether these laws curbed passion or just fueled rebellion. Did Augustus's rules strengthen families, or did they drive love underground? You're not sure, but you notice a nervous couple whispering in the court's shadow, their hands brushing defiantly. Laws also governed marriage contracts, like those dowry deals you saw at that wedding. Divorce was easy, just a signed papyrus, but remarriage was a legal maze, especially for women. You think of your cousin's endless prenup drama and nod. Rome's red tape feels oddly familiar. You slip into the forum where scribes record betrothals and breakups. Laws favored men, letting husbands punish cheating wives harshly, while men's flings got a pass. Yet, some women, like the elite Clodia, bent rules with cunning, her affairs dodging legal traps. You recall Cicero's tender letters. His love for Terentia danced within these bounds until it didn't. The law was a net, but love was slippery, sneaking through cracks like water. As dusk falls, you lean against a column, the city's hum softening. Rome's laws tried to tame love, but hearts don't read fine print. You smirk, remembering Cleopatra's rule-breaking romance. Legal or not, passion wrote its own story. The stars flicker, and you're ready to see how love's echoes linger in Rome's ruins. You're wandering Rome's crumbling ruins, the Colosseum's shadow long under a fading sun. Broken columns and weathered stones whisper of a city that loved fiercely, from epic poems to secret scandals. You're here to trace love's lasting mark on Rome, how its echoes shape the dust you tread. The air feels heavy, like history's holding its breath, and you step softly, ready to feel love's final chords. Rome's legacy of love is carved everywhere. A mainstream fact, the Air Hypaches, Augustus's altar of peace, shows carved lovers and families, tying love to Rome's eternal glory. You trace a stone couple's linked hands, their faces worn but tender. These images weren't just art, they were propaganda, selling love as the empire's glue. But here's a quirky tidbit. Archaeologists found a tiny graffitied heart near the Palatine Hill, scratched by some nobody long ago. You grin, picturing a lovesick teen defying time with a pocket knife. Talk about leaving a mark. Historians still argue whether Rome's obsession with love softened or strengthened its fall. Did passion distract leaders, or did it fuel their drive? You're not sure, but you recall Cleopatra and Antony's doomed affair. Love shook empires, for better or worse. Wandering past a shattered fountain, you spot Venus's statue, half buried, her smile unbroken. She's still here, tying Rome's past to your present, whispering that love outlasts marble. You think of Dido's fire, Cicero's letters, Pompeii's bold walls, each a thread in Rome's love story. The laws tried to chain it, philosophers to tame it, but love was Rome's pulse, messy and alive. You chuckle, imagining Seneca scolding you for getting sappy, but even he'd admit love's power. As you sit on a fallen column, the city feels less ruined, more like a lover's diary, its pages open to the sky. The wind carries a soft hum, and you let your thoughts drift. Rome's love stories, tragic, cunning, divine, aren't locked in the past. They're in the way you chase sparks, write sappy texts, or carve your own hearts into fleeting moments. The stones cool under your hands, and you feel connected, like Rome still whispering its secrets, urging you to love boldly, flaws and all. Now, let the ruins fade, their edges softening like a dream. Picture yourself sinking into a quiet grove, the air gentle, the stars above Rome winking slowly. Love, in all its Roman chaos, isn't so far from your own heart's stumbles and hopes. You've walked through passion's fire and law's cold grip, but here, in this moment, It's just you and the night's calm. Let the story settle like dust after a long day. Your breath slows, the world grows hushed, and Rome's echoes cradle you. Feel the warmth of those ancient lovers' courage, their small joys, their stubborn sparks. They're with you in every choice to care, to risk, to stay. Close your eyes, let the breeze carry you, and drift into sleep, wrapped in love's timeless glow. Sweet dreams.